We now know that the Sahara Desert was, within recent millennia, lush, fertile and permanently inhabited. In 2008, a settlement, said to be 5,000 years old, was discovered in Gobero, now the very driest part of the Sahara. Skeletons were found laid in their graves upon beds of flowers. All over the site were the bones of animals such as hippos, giraffes, elephants, warthogs and turtles, as well as tools and fishing equipment. The Sahara Desert has many large dried up lake beds and river systems. There are paintings of people and animals which are now gone. Today there are no river systems within the desert at all. How long has this been the case? Perhaps these people did not live as long ago as commonly thought. In biblical times, the Egyptians and Assyrians were in their turn the world's superpowers. This is more understandable if their climate was better than it is today. This chart from the 1600s shows the location of rivers and lakes within the Sahara. A source of fresh water would have been important information for the mariners of those days. We know that the area was not lush and green 400 years ago, but the rivers and lakes recorded are now gone. Evidence like this suggests that the process of desertification has happened more quickly than commonly thought, and that the Sahara and the Middle East in biblical times had a more temperate and fruitful climate. In recent decades, scuba divers have begun to discover large man-made stone structures at a depth of 30 metres. The end of the Ice Age caused a rise in sea level estimated at 130 metres, but this estimate may be in error, or the structures may have been built a little higher than the sea level. This one in India is one of two known in India. The angle of the stonework on this Japanese structure looks similar to the ziggurats and pyramids found in other parts of the world, such as South America, Southeast Asia, Mesopotamia and Egypt. This similarity in architecture, if it does exist, suggests a common heritage or regular contact between civilizations by sea trade. Both would agree with what the Bible teaches about the post-flood world. The Bible teaches that all men are of one blood. Our ancestors are the 8 survivors of the Genesis flood, not apes or monkeys. The human race did not evolve separately in different locations. I can receive and give a blood transfusion to any of these Kalahari Bushmen who have the same blood group as me. Because they use bows and arrows and live an unsophisticated lifestyle does not make them primitive or any less endowed than myself. If I lived where they do, I would have to live as they do. It is language that divides people, and within isolated populations, particular genetic traits become dominant, and this is the reason why people around the world have a different appearance, but the Bible does not teach that there are races or that men evolved. Attempts have been made over the years to prove the Bible wrong and show that man evolved from another animal such as an ape. Some examples here. The Heidelberg man is based upon a single jawbone. Apart from being from a stronger, larger man, there is no difference. Nebraska man was imagined from a single tooth, which was later found to belong to an extinct pig. Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthal man are superior in physique, but otherwise no different from men today. The Piltdown man was a famous hoax. An orangutan jawbone had been combined with a modern human skull. This was claimed as scientific proof of the evolution of man for 40 years until the fraud was discovered. Why, in this case, was it so easy to deceive the experts with such a clumsy deception? Or is it the case of willful ignorance, as the Bible passage in 2 Peter 3 claims? When God divided the people of the earth at Babel, he did so by means of language and family group. Some groups had more knowledge from the old civilization than did others, and many people had to manage as best they could, but all of them remembered the great flood that destroyed the old world. There are over 200 flood accounts amongst the nations of the world. The Table of Nations in Genesis 10 is an accurate account of where the descendants of Noah travelled after the dispersion. Prior to the Middle Ages, the ancient kings of England had to be able to trace their ancestry back to Noah in order to qualify. Noah was also a prophet. The Indo-Europeans and English-speaking peoples are descended from Noah's son Japheth. The people of Israel, the Middle East and Southern Asia are descended from Shem. Noah said that we, Japheth, should dwell in the tents of Shem. The history, laws and culture of European civilization has been founded upon God's word revealed in the Hebrew Scriptures. Moreover, it is the European and English-speaking peoples who have been responsible for spreading the gospel around the world in the last 300 years. The Bible teaches a supernatural origin of all physical things, including mankind, made originally in the image of God, male and female. Atheists teach evolution, that man was made through entirely natural processes, molecules to man, goo to you, the mechanism of development being survival of the fittest. In just a few sentences, we are already in deep water. The naturalistic no-God view is just that. No God, no higher power than man to answer to. If we are animals, then we can have an animal nature. And if we have evolved from apes, surely some will ask the question, as the revered atheist Charles Darwin did, who of all the races is the most evolved? Darwin believed that his race was the most evolved, and would, in the course of time, exterminate the savage races. Ouch! But it was thought to be okay for Darwin to talk the language of racial genocide because it was, well, scientific. Darwin also believed that women were so inferior to men that he was amazed that women even belonged to the same species. He also thought that by caring for the sick, the maimed and the mentally handicapped, that we were thwarting the process of natural selection and weakening the race. Does that remind you of any historical figures from the 20th century, I wonder? The amazing thing is that famous atheists such as Richard Dawkins practically worship this man and call him a genius. But perhaps it is wrong to claim that evolutionary philosophy is intrinsically self-destructive and evil. Perhaps Darwin's apparent racism and misogyny was simply a product of his culture or background. James Watson really is a genius. He discovered the DNA molecule with Francis Crick. For more on this subject, see my genetics video. James led one of America's leading science institutions until 2007, when he was fired for telling the world that it was a delusion to think that black people could reason as well as white people. I haven't heard that he's changed his mind either. But why would intelligent people believe that we evolved from random chemicals in a pond, especially geneticists who know better than the rest of us that the features of the genetic code lie completely outside natural processes? The Bible teaches that we are born with the knowledge of God, that we have conscience and the law of God in our hearts and the knowledge of eternity, that God can be known by the things that are made. If we choose not to retain the knowledge of God, then we will be given up to futile thinking and make a God in our own image, or the image of the things we see. The Bible can be trusted to tell us the truth about our origins, the real history of the world, and ourselves. The Gospel is not a self-help or self-improvement program. It is appointed once for a man to die and then judgment. Hebrews 9 verse 27. No reincarnation or second chances. The standard of judgment will be on God's law, the Ten Commandments. Every person who ever lived, except Jesus Christ, has broken the law and is therefore guilty under the law. Escape from this judgment is not by any kind of works or good deeds. The Bible explains that Christ, the promised Messiah, is the atonement for sin, and whoever applies to the Father for forgiveness through the Son will not be turned away, but instead will receive everlasting life. I hope you found this interesting, and thanks for taking the time to watch it.